They finally opened the doors to Jay Leno's legendary garage, and what they found inside was nothing short of jaw-dropping. For decades, whispers floated through Hollywood, a secret lair hidden behind steel and silence, guarded not just by locks, but by Leno's deep obsession. This wasn't just a garage. It was a shrine. A private museum. A mechanical kingdom built with precision, passion, and millions of dollars. Why had it remained so secret for so long? What was Jay hiding? Today, for the first time, the veil is lifted, and what's revealed inside redefines the very meaning of car collecting. Before he became the king of late-night television, before the fame and flashing cameras, Jay Leno was just a man with grease on his hands and a dream under the hood. Now, that dream is unleashed. Jay Leno's rise wasn't a fairy tale, it was a grind forged in the dim lights of America's toughest comedy clubs. His world was small stages, cold crowds, and relentless hustle. He didn't slide into comedy, he clawed his way in. In those early days, he performed at legendary but brutal venues like the Comedy Store in LA, Zanies in Chicago, and dingy basements in New York. Bigger names bumped him off the stage, and sometimes the crowd barely noticed he was there. But Jay wasn't trying to be the loudest, he was built to outlast everyone. While others chased fame, Jay chased stage time. Every joke that landed, every silence that stung, it was all part of his education. He slept in his car, skipped meals, and lived off a budget so tight he'd eat just once a day. His one rule: never spend your TV money, survive on your stand-up. He stuck to it with iron discipline. No fancy apartments, no wild parties, just grit, grind, and a relentless pursuit of getting better, one set at a time. By the late 1970s, people started noticing. In 1977, Johnny Carson gave Jay his big break on The Tonight Show. But it wasn't just the moment, it was how Jay showed up, polished, precise, and ready. Carson saw something in him. And that one shot turned into a recurring invitation, because Jay Leno had finally built an act that couldn't be ignored. When guest hosting opportunities came knocking, Jay Leno didn't flinch, he was ready. Every time he took the desk, he proved something rare in Hollywood: he wasn't just funny, he was consistent. And in a town full of big personalities and fragile egos, that made him dangerous. But behind the scenes, the path to the Tonight Show throne was anything but smooth. By the early 90s, as Johnny Carson neared retirement, the power struggle turned into one of the most ruthless battles in television history. David Letterman was the expected heir, the critics' favorite. But Jay was the quiet workhorse with something to prove. Behind closed doors, the battle got ugly. Leno's manager, Helen Kushnick, played the game like a war general, hardball negotiations, even sneaking Jay into closets to spy on NBC meetings. It sounds like fiction, but it wasn't. Jay didn't always love the game, but he refused to lose it. And in 1992, despite backlash and whispers from Hollywood elites, Jay Leno became the host of The Tonight Show. America didn't get the edgy rebel it expected, instead, they got someone warm, safe, a little quirky, and they embraced him with open arms. Ratings soared. Leno quietly became the king of late night. But even as he dominated the screen, Jay never stopped chasing the next laugh. After taping his nightly show, he'd hit the comedy clubs, doing sets just to stay sharp. Not for fame. Not for money. Just because it was in his blood. Yet, peace never lasted. In 2009, NBC forced a shaky handoff to Conan O'Brien. Jay stepped aside, but when Conan's numbers sank, NBC panicked, and Leno returned. Though he reclaimed the 11:35 spot, the damage was done. His legacy was now tangled in controversy, and the once silent workhorse found himself at the center of late night's most divisive chapter. He was turned down by the comic world. Leno lied to behind those headlines was a man who didn't want to be a villain, just someone who had spent decades surviving and wasn't about to give up the throne. When he finally stepped down for good in 2014, Jay didn't go away, he went back to his roots and became the same guy who started out in those dark clubs, still looking for the next laugh. Let me tell you something you probably haven't heard about the secret obsession behind Jay Leno's career. When you think of Jay Leno, you probably picture him behind the desk on The Tonight Show or under the hood of one of his more than 180 classic cars. But on the rocky coast of Newport, Rhode Island, far from the bright lights of Hollywood, you'll find his secret sanctuary, which Seafair bought in 2017 for a reported $13. A $5 million Seafair home isn't just any house. This is a statement, a 14,000 square foot oceanfront estate in the style of Louis XIV. It sits right on the edge of the Atlantic, looking like something from a European postcard but on American soil. It was built in 1936 by millionaire Vera Zevela Reed Jr. The mansion was designed to follow the curve of the Rhode Island coastline, giving it a unique crescent shape. Today, it's one of the most famous private homes in Newport. It was once home to Gilded Age royalty and now. Late Night Story from the outside. Seafair has grand limestone walls, tall columns, fields that stretch out in all directions, and views of the ocean from almost every room inside. The house has 14 bedrooms, 17 bathrooms, and a grand dining room that looks like it belongs in Versailles. Every square foot of Seafair is filled with old money elegance, from the marble fireplaces and chandeliers that probably cost more than most people's cars to the paneled library. But what makes it stand out is not just the French-inspired building or the waterfront glitz, it's how Jay Leno lives there. For a man who is known for being cheap, this estate shows something deeper. Leno may live in California, but when he wants peace and quiet, he goes to Seafair. There are no red carpets or networks there, just the sound of waves crashing and the cool air from the Atlantic. In an interview, Jay once said, "There's no traffic, no meetings, just the sound of the ocean." It's like the opposite of show business. That quote says it all after decades of schedules, ratings wars, and TV politics. This is where he goes to relax, not work. It's his getaway, not his. Leno owns 6 cars, so his cars go with him everywhere. The estate also has a private dock, beautiful gardens, and a huge swimming pool with a view of the ocean. Every detail seems to have been carefully chosen for someone who values craftsmanship and history, just like Leno does with his cars. What shocks you more? Jay doesn't talk about the house much in public. He even jokes, "It's not like I throw Gatsby parties or anything, I mostly walk around with a sandwich and look at the water." That's the strange thing about Jay Leno. The man who used to be the star of late-night shows with millions of viewers still finds the most happiness in being alone. He doesn't need the cameras to feel like a king at a Seafair, he just lets go. You've seen celebrity homes before, but nothing prepares you for what Jay Leno hides in his garage. This is where the real shock starts. Inside Lowe's Big Dog Garage. When you're in California, Jay Leno's Big Dog Garage is more than just a place to store your cars. A huge working garage where cars are fixed, renovated, and even built from scratch. Leno bought the original space in 1991, it was about 17,000 square feet. Since then, it has grown into a 122,000 square foot complex with several buildings. As Leno's interest in cars and hands-on work grew over the years, this garage slowly grew. Leno didn't want a showroom or a museum, he wanted a place where he and his team could work on cars properly. It's a garage, it's not meant to be pretty. Leno once said, "The goal is to keep things running, not to hide them behind ropes." That way of thinking made the whole place what it is today. The garage is busy with loud tools and people moving around. It's not about showing off, it's about fixing things, keeping them in good shape, and learning. Inside the garage, there are different areas for different tasks, such as areas for machining parts with CNC tools, areas with car lifts for mechanical repairs, and even areas for painting and body work. Many of the cars that come through this garage are old or damaged. Parts are hard to find when something is rare, but that's not a problem here. Using their high-tech tools, Leno's team often makes the parts themselves. A full-time group of skilled workers run the garage's daily business. Bernard Juki, the manager, is in charge of them. Juki has a lot of experience with racing and mechanical work. Leno trusts him completely and often says that Bernard is the reason the garage runs so smoothly. Even though Leno is often there, he loves to tinker and fix things. He relies on his team to get big jobs done. Over time, the garage gained useful rooms such as staff offices, a kitchen, and storage areas for tools and supplies. Everything has a purpose. The goal is to keep the garage running as a real workplace, not a show center, which is why you'll find both old and new machines there. The variety helps the team work on cars from different eras. With a $50 million collection of expensive machines inside, security is taken very seriously. The garage has gates that are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and regular patrols. But even with all this, the place still feels like a workshop, and the focus is on the work, not the status. Leno often says that every car in the garage should run, because he doesn't believe in owning cars just for show. He wants them to work the way they were meant to. This belief is what drives everything at Big Dog Garage. The cars are driven, tested, and kept in working order, not just polished and left alone. You must be wondering how someone could build such a huge garage, but that's not how big the garage is. It's about what Jay Leno keeps inside it. His collection will leave you speechless. Leno has always been more than just a famous car collector. He's a real fan who likes everything from old steam engines to new supercars. Jay Leno has one of the biggest and most interesting car collections in the world. As of 2024, it is thought to be worth over $52 million and includes 181 cars and 160 motorbikes. There are some old and interesting things in his shed that are from the times of steam and electricity in the past of cars. Leno owns a 1906 advanced steam tractor, which you'd normally find in a museum, and a 1909 Baker electric, which shows that electric cars aren't as new as many people think. These early machines are complicated, rare, and fragile, but Leno enjoys the challenge of keeping them running. Leno also owns a number of historic and high-performance classics, including Bentleys, Bugattis, and Dunbergs. The Bugatti Type 57 is one of his most impressive cars. It's one of the best examples of European engineering and design before World War II. These cars are more than just collectibles, they're part of the history of cars, and Leno takes great care to keep that. His love for American muscle is also clear. His garage is full of Dodge Challengers, vintage Mustangs, and other classic muscle cars. Each one has a story, and many have been fixed up or customized in his workshop. These cars show the raw power and design spirit of American car culture from the 1960s and 1970s. Jay Leno may have a stable of Bentley. He could choose from Lamborghini models, but for a while his daily car was a simple Chevy Volt. It's the car I use to run errands, and when it's raining or bad weather, I have to go to the airport. It's a great everyday car, he told the press at the 2011 Los Angeles Auto Show. But Leno is also very open about his love of modern engineering and design. His 1994 McLaren F1, which has a top speed of over $240 million per hour, is probably the most famous car in his collection. He bought it for about $800,000 in the 1990s, and now it's thought to be worth between $17 million and $20 million. He still drives it, though. He once said, "It's not an investment, it's a car." Next is the Blastoine Special, also called the tank car. It has a 29-liter engine from a military tank and looks as crazy as it sounds. It weighs over 9,500 pounds and is legal to drive on the street. Leno often takes it for drives, turning heads wherever he goes. Finally, the GM EcoJet is a jet turbine. The biodiesel-powered concept car was made in partnership with GM. It looks like a spaceship and sounds like a jet taking off again. Only Jay Leno would have something like this in their garage, which is why he helped design it. Leno always talks fondly about his 1972 Mercedes-Benz 600 compressor. This high-end car was impressive on its own, but Leno had a modern supercharged engine added to it. The result is a one-of-a-kind blend of old-fashioned style and current performance. It's strong, quiet, and unique, just the way Leno likes his cars. He carefully chooses the cars he collects, He doesn't just buy them because they're expensive or rare, he buys them because they're interesting, well-built, and have a story to tell. He works closely with his team to restore and keep each one, often getting his hands dirty in the process. Leno once said, "You learn more when you fix something than when you just write a check." That's a. The size and price of Jay Leno's collection are impressive, but what really makes it stand out is his belief that these rare cars aren't meant to be hidden away, but to be driven and lived with. Jay Leno's philosophy toward his collection of cars is simple but deeply passionate. These machines aren't meant to sit idle, unlike many collectors who lock their cars away in climate-controlled storage. Leno thinks that every car, no matter how old, rare, or expensive it is, should be fully functional. He once said in an interview that regularly driven cars are meant to be driven, and that belief guides how he lives with his huge collection of 181 cars and 160 motorcycles. Leno doesn't just drive these cars for show, he uses them in everyday life, often cruising around Burbank, California, where he lives and where his Big Dog garage is located, in his more unusual cars, like his 1909 Baker Electric, the jet-powered EcoJet, or the huge Blasterine tank car. He doesn't just stage moments for the camera, he really enjoys driving, testing, and feeling every part of each machine. Leno often brings his cars and motorcycles to charity events, car club meets, and other enthusiast gatherings. You can see him at shows like Pebble Beach Concours de Leons or Cars and Coffee meets, sometimes arriving in a Duesenberg and other times in a restored American muscle car. He doesn't do these things to promote himself, he does them to share his passion and show people that even the oldest cars can still be a part of everyday life. In November 2022. Jay Leno experienced a terrifying coincidence that shook the automobile fanatic community whilst operating inside his huge canine garage in Burbank. Leno became severely injured in a fire that erupted at some point of habitual preservation on certainly one of his traditional steam-powered automobiles. Consistent with reports, the incident passed off whilst a gas leak sprayed fuel onto his face and arms and a spark ignited the vapors, inflicting a sudden burst of flames. Leno suffered second and 0.33 degree burns on his face, chest and fingers. He became at once rushed to the Grossman Burn Center in La, in which he underwent skin graft surgery and hyperbaric oxygen remedy. No matter the severity of the burns, Leno remained in right spirits for the duration of his treatment, joking with sanatorium workforce and keeping his trademark sense of humor. Just weeks after the coincidence, Leno turned into back at the garage and shortly sufficient back on the street. It was a second that showed now not most effective his resilience, however, also the deep private bond he stocks with his collection. Maximum. Recently Leno made considered one of the biggest selections of his lifestyle, stepping away from the Tonight Show, but what certainly amazed all and sundry wasn't his retirement, it changed into what he selected to do subsequent. Whilst Jay Leno stepped far away from the This Night Show, many puzzled what route he might take next, but it didn't take lengthy to discover. Instead of fading from public lifestyles, Leno pivoted to something he had continually been deeply captivated with: motors, and that shift gave upward thrust to a new bankruptcy that added him even towards enthusiasts who shared his love of engines restoration. And the street. In 2015 Leno released Jay Leno's Garage on CNBC. It wasn't just a facet interest, it had become a complete-scale production that spanned 7 Emmy-prevailing seasons. The show wasn't approximately glamour or exclusivity, instead it added human beings into Leno's world of mechanical splendor, rare classics, high-tech prototypes and honest conversations. Approximately what makes motors unique. Whether or not he changed into Speak Me to fellow gearheads trying out a cutting-edge electric automobile or riding a 100-year vintage steam automobile, Leno's enthusiasm become true. That is what made the display work. After CNBC's run, the display persevered on YouTube, in which Jay Leno's Garage now has over 3.6 million subscribers. The web format gave Leno greater flexibility and fanatics greater get-right of entry to shorter films, deep dives into uncommon models, interviews with celebrities and spontaneous drives through Burbank kept the channel sparkling and attractive past the screen. Leno's media presence additionally improved in print. He regularly contributed to famous mechanics, offering restoration tips and explaining engineering principles in a way that made experience even to novices his tone become never condescending. Alternatively, he welcomed readers into his global whether or not he became discussing rebuilding a carburetor or explaining the distinction between early EV fashions and contemporary ones. He additionally wrote for the Sunday instances in the United Kingdom, achieving global audiences with tales and insights drawn from a long time of accumulating, using, and fixing automobiles. He has also stayed seen through occasional appearances on TV shows like Final Guy's Standing Lip Sync Battle and various speak shows. Leno has persisted to perform stand-up comedy and speak at activities, frequently weaving car tales into his workouts. This mixture of humor and deep car information has helped him maintain a completely unique vicinity in the public eye. Through it all, Jay Leno hasn't simply remained relevant, he has redefined himself from high-time TV host to full-time automobile guy. He has established that retirement does not have to suggest stepping back for Leno. It just intended hitting the fuel in a brand new course. What do you reflect on? Consideration on Jay Leno's remarkable storage and his one-of-a-kind vehicle series. Percentage your thoughts in the remarks. Do you have got a favorite car from his collection or a dream storage of your very own?